Hello friends and welcome to my studio. Today I'm going to do a demonstration for you to continue a video about light, painting light. What could be more fun? So today I want to show you some concepts of how to paint brightly lit up surface and how to preserve your values using edges, temperature of color, saturation, paint quality, and brushstroke to increase the feeling of light. So welcome and let's get to it. Then I'm gonna design the shadow shape. So one thing about shadow is make it strong, make it first dark. You can always change your mind and bring more reflective light if your shadow will be too dark. So I put a generous amount of light, meaning white. And now what I'm going to do is cool it off by adding a tiny amount of phthalo blue. And then I'll take my cooler yellow, also a drop of it, put it outside of my light. And I'm going to lead a little bit of it into the paint. So here already on my palette, I have a range of cooler light that has more blue and warmer light that has a little bit more yellow into it. You can see the spectrum of more color, more cooler temperature, and more color but warmer temperature. What I'm going to do is just darken my background, just mixing a cooler, kind of a greenish gray, starting from raw umber, yellow ochre, and adding a little bit of phthalo into the mix. But always repaint the background more than one time. But this is only for the purpose of taking away the light from the background, using the background to shape a little bit more, using the background to enter the shadow and open up the edge. Take a little bit of a background and enter in some of the place of the shadow. And now I'm ready to paint the light. I will remind you a couple things that I mentioned in my first part of this video. One, that you always have to think about light as moving. It comes from the left upper corner. The first thing it hits is the most protruded area towards the light, which is right here. This is where highlight will be. And then the light spreads to the starting light edge and on the shoulder, and it spreads for as long as it can. So I simply take that cooler paint and move all the way on the shoulder. Move down as it flows down. Move across. Notice how I vary my brush stroke to really help you to read the form of the vase. As I come to the corner where the curvature that it's facing the light now is turning into the movement down, instead of changing the value, which would be more of a way that the drawing would do, we just simply start changing the temperature by making this less bluer and more yellow. And as I go more down, I'm becoming a little bit more yellow, a little bit more saturated in its color and therefore feeling a little bit warmer. Now, as I reach almost the shadow, I'm gonna get a little bit of my background color mixed into my light. And I'm gonna locks my pressure on the brush and just pass it right next to the shadow. Notice that I'm just literally dragging my brush, and my brush is not coming to the painting at 45 degrees, standing on the tippy toe of the brush, but my brush is more laying down on the canvas, touching it as flatly as possible and dragging with almost very, very little pressure. And I'm gonna take the same paint and I'm gonna move that towards the throat. Take a little bit of my medium and just allow the table become a little darker so it's not distracting us. And here will be leaves. Let's look at this very, very beginning of developing of the painting. Notice that what I did, I have a sharp starting light edge because the light starts right from the edge. It's not right to soften the edge and it's not right to darken the edge because light doesn't act that way. Light starts from the edge and flows across the form, and light starts from the top and flows down till it meets the corner where the light is no more and the shadow begins. If you look at the value here, the value is absolutely the same. So I'm gonna take more white, I'm gonna bring a little bit more bluer light again, just as a second layer, reinforce the cooler temperature right here. And I think now I'm using a little bit more titanium, so it's a little bit more coverage. And then I'll put a little bit more warmer temperature. And as I move down, now my brush stroke is down the form, changing. I'm not changing the value, but I shifted the temperature. And as the light becomes dimmer, I'm becoming more and more warmer. But right before my shadow, where transition is, I picked up a little bit of the background color and I mixed in a very small amount, in a very short distance of that light, I put a little bit of the background color. The next thing I'm gonna do is wipe my brush and then slide the brush across the shadow and soften the edge. Notice I'm not blending. This would be blending, using the fingers and using the brush with the short movements. But what I did, I simply pulled the paint in together, again, with a very little pressure to merge them and to take your attention away from the edge. The next thing I'm gonna do is use another tool to distract you from that edge. That would be my highlight. So I'm gonna take more white, I'm gonna take a little bit of blue, and I'm gonna take a thick piece of paint in pasta, and I will put my first highlight. Again, it's very important to put it in the right place, where the top of the plane, like a lid of that sphere, now transitions into the frontal plane. It will be somewhere here. And I lay in that thick highlight. I will take my palette knife and just slide that paint in. Notice that here I'm using impasto, a paint quality, to separate my highlight which is very, very close in value. But because it's a thicker paint, it will attract the viewer's eye and it will pull this corner of the vase towards the viewer. It will also distract from a beginning of the shadow line. And I will put another little highlight on the lip, and I will put another little highlight on the corner of the neck. And because there is so much light here and some light here, what happens in the middle of the shadow that is trapped between two lights, the shadow gets so much reflective light that it gets washed out. So I'm lessening the value of that shadow here, but I'm leaving it somewhat darker there. Let's now employ our edges to create readability of the light and the form. Thank you so much.